Hello, I'm your host, Kelly Eckhart, and welcome to The Future Edit. Hello, and welcome back to The Future Edit. I'm your host, Kelly Eckhart. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I have a wonderful guest today. I have Freyja Kah from Kah Haus. Now, Freyja she reads tarot, she does birth charts, she also does reiki. And Freyja is another fellow American from New York, based here in Frankfurt. And I got to know Freyja because a good friend of mine, Anna, gifted me a session with her for my birthday. So I had my birth chart read and I did an 1.5-hour session. It was amazing. And oh my God, just the enthusiasm and the knowledge that she has about birth charts and Reiki and tarot in general is just absolutely phenomenal. And we had such a great session. I really felt like I connected with her. And in this session, in this conversation, it's a beautiful conversation. And I cannot wait for you to listen to Freyja and her life experience and her work and how it can help you. So I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to introduce you to Freyja. Well, Freyja, thank you so much for being here today. I have Freyja Kah with me on the podcast. She's an intuitive reader and I've had a birth chart reading with her and found it extremely fascinating. And I want to talk to her more about her work and dig a bit deeper into what her work is and what it means and how we can get involved and all that good stuff. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Now, first off, tell me about yourself and a little bit of your background and then how you got into, how you started Kah Haus.
It sounds a bit of a cliche, but I had a serious midlife crisis.
I know those.
So it happened around, I think I was 41, 42. So maybe a bit early on the early side in terms of midlife crises. But I was living in New York, working in advertising. I had a boyfriend and I was deeply, deeply unhappy. And I started looking around and looking at my peers, and being a New Yorker, people are quite competitive, people are quite ambitious. And I was like, I think I was always quite a spiritual person, but I didn't really have, I grew up Korean Christian. I'm of Korean American descent. So I grew up in a Korean Christian house. Most of my mother was the main Christian driver in the family, but I did not connect with that at all, and I kind of just became agnostic or almost atheist, and it was very much like, no, you have to go after certain things like having a career. And I just started going like, oh, okay, I have to do the checklist, like, where's my career? Do I have a husband? What's my apartment like? Do I have nice things? Do I have money in my bank account? And, it was just like everything. And I started looking around and I was like, oh, okay, this person has this and this and this. This must mean that they're happy. Yeah. And so I tried to push toward that, I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and we were deeply, deeply unsuited for each other.
I know those relationships.
And I think I kind of gave up. Like, having dated in New York for so long, I dated so many people and had so many partners, and every relationship kept exploding, kept just like one after the one, just falling apart one after the other, no matter how hard I tried to make it work. Finally, I found someone who was just willing to stick with me for whatever reason. And then he'd gotten me pregnant. And I just started like becoming this incredibly freakishly controlling person. Like I was like, okay, I have to have my house set up right. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then I was a freelance art director at the time, and I didn't want to go for full time because I just felt like it was too much pressure for me to. But he was so freaked out that like I was going to become the stay-at-home mom. I think that was his, and he was an aspiring comic book artist, but he wasn't very successful. So I think he was worried that he would have to make all the income and I'd be a stay-at-home mom. I think that was his deep-seated fear, even though he never said it.
Yeah.
And so he started like forcing me to try to get a full-time job while I was pregnant, and then working in advertising, which was already very grueling hours, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And then I ended up having a miscarriage.
Okay.
Which was, and I don't have a close relationship with I had a very troubled childhood. Don't have a close relationship with my parents. And I realized I didn't really like myself.
Yeah.
And it just all kind of culminated. He broke up with me. He kicked me out of the house. I lost my job because they had found out that I was applying. I had finally gotten that full-time job, but they were putting me on some sort of like temporary, like, okay, we'll wait and see before we solidify that you're full-time.
Okay.
And then they found a resume, and then my boyfriend at the time was like, no, you have to keep applying for jobs. So then the creative director found my resume, like I had photocopied it and left it there.
Oh no!
In the photocopy room. And so he was like, you're going to have to go. So I lost my job. So then that's started cascading.
Yeah.
So and I was not willing to let go of my boyfriend because I was like, oh my God, I'm the biggest loser. I just lost my job. I just lost the baby. And at the time I was already 40. So I was like thinking like this was probably my last chance to ever have a child, because that's all everyone kept saying was like, this is the last chance you're going to have to get pregnant. Which meanwhile, like so much pressure. And meanwhile, can I tell you, I know so many women who've had babies well into their mid to late 40s.
And 50s.
Because of, and 50. I know someone who had her baby at 50. And and so like, I was listening to everyone else except for myself. And I was in deep, deep, deep pain, mostly guilt over, oh God, I have not thought about this in a long time, but mostly had guilt that I had somehow caused the miscarriage.
Okay. Yeah.
On purpose. And the boyfriend at the time kind of alluded to that, like, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. It was very ugly. And I was not nice to him either. It was a very, very, the ending of the relationship was very, very ugly.
Yeah.
So then I realized, like, I was at this fork in the road. I was like, either I'm going to have to be this, I was like, felt like the biggest loser. I was so ready to become really bitter. I could felt my heart just like hardening. Yeah. You know, like a big rock was just kind of really like starting to form around my heart. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, maybe there's another way. And my friend, one of my dearest friends was like, oh, I have a friend who's starting to do Reiki healing. I think you would like her. Maybe you should go see her. And I had never heard about Reiki healing or any of these modalities. This is like back in 2011, 2010. So, you know, even back then, Instagram was not even a thing. If you can imagine a time. So yeah, it started like, and then I got so deep into the whole self-help thing. Like, you know, I started looking into other healing modalities, Reiki, acupuncture. You know, I worked with psychic mediums. I just started all cascading. And then eventually I also learned to become a certified Reiki healer.
Nice.
And the Reiki healing I learned also incorporates crystal therapy. Yeah. So I became as my sister put it, maybe it's not the most politically correct thing to say, but she's like, oh, you've become a holistic junkie. Like I became a crystal hoarder. Yeah. everything, like anything you can imagine. I started going to rock and mineral gem shows with all the other senior citizens. I mean, this is before it was starting
super
to
popular.
trend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, before it was super popular, but like when I went, it was like only people 80 plus were going to these things. So yeah, that was the beginning of the journey, and it's been a very, very interesting one.
But isn't that interesting that, I mean, I find that for this can be how it can be a very popular way to go about it, right? That we've all had these really incredible, quite interesting and diverse paths to get where we are now that are not easy. A lot of what you said resonates with me as well, that to get to where I am now has been pretty fucking hard. It's been a lot of ups and downs and arounds, and being here and there and thinking, fuck, what am I going to do with myself? What next? Getting into the whole holistic junkie thing, and, and then trying to kind of sort out what's best for you, right? And how to navigate that. So then how did you end up, because now you're in Frankfurt, clearly, how did you end up here?
Well, professionally, I'm a graphic designer. Okay. I went to grad school in California for graphic design, and my best friend, who's German, was one of my classmates and my best friend. And I'd always had this longing to live in a different country.
Yeah.
And she made it very palatable. She was like, you can come stay with me. You can come live with me. And I'll help you get a visa. And other friends of mine were moving to Berlin, and they're like, oh, you can get an artist visa or freelancer's visa. So it just seemed like, because at that point, being on this sort of, and everyone's spiritual journey is so different, but I realized I'd become so much of a softer, way more sensitive person.
Yeah.
And being in a frenetic place like New York, which is, I mean, my mentor said that New York City is built on a bed of quartz. So it amplifies any energy that happens to it. So, which makes total sense. Like any sort of look at COVID, look how it hit New York. Look at, any sort of hurricane or any natural disaster or 9/11. New York, it's like everything reverberates throughout the whole city. And the energy there is, as much as I love it, I was born in Queens, so I'm very much a New Yorker in my heart, but it's such an extreme place. And I realized, like, no, I want to live in a gentler place. I want to live in a place that's and also, now looking back, it's like I want to live in a place that supports their people on a social level.
Yes, absolutely.
Like just basic needs. I mean, if you think about something like Flint, Michigan, and children not having access to clean water, it pains me to live in a country where that happens.
Yeah.
It would be so hard to imagine that happening in Germany.
That's the thing about the US. Absolutely. I love living in Europe for that aspect, for the fact that there's so many people, like you said, that are literally just left to kind of fend for themselves. And this is not the way society should be at all, right? I mean, it is a thing about, because my family's from New York as well, like we had said before. And I mean, it's such an amazing energy and vibe of the city, right? But like you said, it can, I was watching the show the other day, Feed Phil. I don't know if you watch Feed Phil, and he was the writer of Everyone Loves Raymond.
Okay.
And he's originally from New York, and he was saying the thing about New York is you love it. You're a New Yorker at heart, but then at some point you just feel the heaviness and you got to get away. Yeah. And he says some people just end up moving out of the city or moving on completely, and that's why he moved to LA. And then some people just somehow handle it and they stay there forever. And he's like, I couldn't do it.
It's tough. You really have to have a thick skin. And my skin has become so paper thin.
Yeah. Do you find since moving to Germany, what do you think? Do you think people are quite open to spirituality here? Or do you think it's more open in the US?
Well, I have the issue of the language barrier.
Yeah. Do you speak German?
I took 8 months worth of classes, but it's still quite difficult. I actually went to the dentist the other day and I didn't know the word for, oh, do you want anesthesia? I was like, I don't know what you're talking. Like he said it in German.
I wouldn't know that either.
Like, but he was like looking at me like I was two heads. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's, and then if you think about, I mean, it's so funny. My partner is German, and sometimes I'll read these books out loud in German that I have in German about astrology or other kinds of esoteric subjects. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, I understand every single word, but together it's just too abstract. And it's just, so I actually have encountered quite a bit of spirituality, but it's sort of in this, well, it's definitely the age group is a bit older, and it's more about very much women focused. I haven't met like any sort of the LGBTQIA community, whereas in the spirituality I've encountered in the US is more open to different kinds of communities. So yeah, it's been really interesting. I went to this one, they had, actually it was in Norden, they had this sort of like fair kind of thing where, and I actually had an angel reading.
Oh, cool.
And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And my German was terrible at the time, but I was very, very drawn to her. And she just started reading. She started started saying something to me in German and whispering something. I had no idea what she was saying, but I just started crying profusely. Wow. Like she was like releasing some sort of emotional trauma in my system. And it was such a beautiful experience. But it was weird because I didn't understand verbally what she was saying.
But emotionally hit home.
Yeah. The one of the problems is a lot of this spiritual stuff is, and you're seeing a lot more and more in the US, is there's been quite a bit of like connection with like right wing and less progressive types of people. I encountered this one couple, very spiritual. One of them was super into sacred geometry. They both used to work at Deutsche Bank, weirdly enough. But they were so happy to meet me, and I was happy to meet them. But then after a while, I realized that these people are not very nice. Like I don't know if you remember a few years ago in Cologne on New Year's Eve, there was this group of young men, mostly of Middle Eastern or Muslim descent, and they harassed a lot of people and a lot of women especially. Okay. You know, and it was very traumatic. It was super scary. The police did not know what to do. But this one woman, this very spiritual woman I've met here, she started going on and on Facebook, and the ranting was so racist. I was absolutely shocked. Yeah. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is horrible, this is unacceptable, because people should feel safe. It was like, get these, kind of people out of here, and they don't belong in Germany, and distinguishing them by race and ethnicity. And I don't know, it was very, very disheartening.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought, because I'm the same, I grew up in a very, very fundamental Christian upbringing. And so I experienced, they say they're not racist, but definitely in certain aspects were, and I always thought that spirituality in general was supposed to be about love, and it's supposed to be about, you go inward, you know yourself, and the more you know yourself, the more you're open and honest, and then you respect everyone around you, right? And I find this quite interesting, even whether God or not God, that how spirituality should be about acceptance and love, right? And why has this turned? Why all of a sudden can people call themselves super spiritual, but they can't accept, others? Yeah, okay, it was terrible what those men are doing, but that could have been any kind of man.
Anyone.
That's the thing. It's that it shouldn't be based on race at all. No. We're all one. We're all one energy, right? We're all energy. And, you know, and completely picking on people because of the race doesn't make any sense to me. You know.
Yeah, it was really, really disheartening. I mean, as my mentor, my Reiki teacher said, she said, spiritual people can be all over the map.
Yeah.
Just like anyone else, you know, I mean, people can have really good intentions, but if they don't know better or want to know better, they're not going to do better. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe no one's ever called her out and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't say that because that's really racist, because she's not aware that, I mean, it's not anyone's job to do that. People should be able to try to learn and be open to these things. But
yeah, exactly.
It's been a really weird journey, and really weird, it's a really weird awakening on my part, because I just assume like, oh, if you're spiritual, like you, like, oh, just accepting and love people and be nice, don't hurt anyone. But
it's not.
It's way more complex than that. It's way more complex.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's spirituality as well. I think a lot of people, and I've had to think about the word spirituality too, because it's been so overused now as well, as, you know, I'm going on my awakening and my journey, so I'm spiritual now, when actually, yeah, definitely, but make sure you use that make sure it's quite sacred what you say about it, because, you know, it is a trend at the moment, right? A lot of people are finding themselves, and with COVID and everything that's been going on over the world, absolutely, but you need to be true to it as well, you know, and not just kind of jump on the bandwagon because it's the next big thing, right? It's like the next trendy color or whatever. So tell me about Reiki, because I am new to this. I've never had it done. I definitely want to have it done.
Okay.
So that's my next session with you.
Yes, I do offer that, and it's been interesting because of things like COVID, and also living so far, because I would say you are probably my only client I've ever had in Germany. Like everyone else has been US based. So I do these distant healings over Zoom, and it is pretty fascinating to see that how much people can get out of something because traditionally, so Reiki healing is an energetic healing modality where you use your hands. A person needs to get initiated through this process by another Reiki master, but I don't really believe that you need that training to do sort of energetic healing. It's more like a feeling, and also setting an intention. Yeah. And but I think the distant healing is another thing, because it's different. Like if let's say I was like standing next to you, and like I put my, you know, when someone touches your, you know, this can have a lot of meaning, touching your shoulder, touching an intimate part. That has a lot of meaning. I mean, Reiki healing can be hands-on or hands-off. Like you can just have the hands like a few centimeters away from the person's body. Yeah. But so basically it comes from Japan. It was invented or brought by Mikao Usui. Okay. I guess like early 20th century, and he taught a few thousand people, and then it spread and finally came to the US in like the 70s. But I learned a combination of crystal Reiki. Yeah. So it's crystal therapy and Reiki healing. So I use the energetic healing of crystals to sort of balance one's energy. Yeah. So it's based on a chakra system. Yes. So do you know about the chakra system?
Yes, I'm slowly learning and reading about it now. Yes, the colors, the different chakras, the throat, the third eye.
Yeah. So there's 7 main chakras. I mean, there's apparently hundreds of chakras, but you work with mostly in Reiki healing with the 7 main chakras. Okay. I also do some healing with the earth chakra, which is at your feet.
Nice.
But yeah, it's and a lot of times like it's channeling the energy from so I guess Reiki means universal energy. Yeah. So basically you're connecting with the universal energy it's going through your crown, which is the top of your head, and then goes through your body, and then eventually flows through your hands, and then the energy comes through your palms.
Oh, cool.
So, with any sort of, and this is what I encourage anyone who gets into healing, it has to come from the person accepting it. It has to serve the person.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely had people try, like I've gone to healers, and I've definitely, looking past, was like, oh, that person wasn't serving me. They were using their power, their ego, whatever, their agenda to influence me for whatever reason. Because I think I have a lot of, even though I'm a Capricorn like you, I know, and because I read your chart, I have a lot of Piscean energy. So I have Pisces in Mars, I have Moon in Pisces. So it's very, a lot of my energy is very wishy-washy and soft. So, and also being an Asian woman ethnically, people can try to push because they're like, oh, she's not going to fight back. She's not going to push back. She's not going to yell back. So, let's face it, on a societal level, I am not on a societal and racist level, I'm not an intimidating person. Yeah. But also my personality is also quite soft. I can be aggressive, but just generally the initial energy, I think, can be quite soft. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just been interesting with the distant healing, because doing it over Zoom, and I get a lot of intuitive hits. Like I speak to guides, and I've been able to see people's. Lately, it's been about relatives, like one's mother's or one's aunt, sort of their personal history getting channeled through the person's energetic body.
Ooh, this is cool.
Yeah, like I was doing distant healing on my friend, and I had seen images of her mother carrying buckets of water, like up a hill. Like, I don't know why I'm seeing this, right? She's like struggling, carrying buckets of water. And then afterwards I told her that I saw this, and she was shocked, because she's like, that was my mother's job during the Korean War. Wow. She had to go down to the village, collect water for the entire family. And it was like, it was very traumatizing for her. Because as a child, like not having enough food, not having enough water, the sort of the scarcity mindset you gain during a time of war and after the war can really get passed down epigenetically with further generations. Right? Is
Reiki good for releasing these generational, what do you even call them, energies or issues? Because I've been reading a lot about, or starting to read about family issues, because I swear that there's some stuff that I need to be released of through generational things going, why is this still an issue? I think this has been an issue for a very long time in the family,
Yes.
And so that's really interesting. So you can really be able to channel these family issues as well, these energies.
Sometimes, it really comes up. There's this thing in Reiki healing called cord cutting.
Okay.
So you think about when you're energetically tied to someone, like, I'm just a very sensitive person, and sometimes, like, if I encounter like a person that's just not good, like they could be just having, they might not be a bad person in general, but if they're just having a really bad day and they're just like angry, or they just shout at me, like I literally can feel the energy pierce through my body. So, I'm shaking. Like I'm shaking for like minute. I have to do a lot of energetic protection every day, because if I don't, it really manifests in really bad ways in my body. And whereas my partner, he's German, he's so grounded. It's like he's like, oh, what's the big deal? So the person yelled at you, who cares? And I'm just like, oh my God, I want to go to bed.
They don't get it, do they?
Oh my God, I've literally seen him get into fights with people, and he's like barking at the guy like a dog, like they're barking at each other like it's like dogs in a dog park, like rah, rah, rah. And afterwards he's like, okay, and I'm like, move on. I was like, oh my God, I'm completely stressed out. Oh, but he's like a tree. He's like, whatever.
Done. Boop.
Yeah.
It's like,
So yeah, there's a thing called cord cutting. So you can go through the chakras and like, if someone comes to me and they're like, oh, I'm dealing with a breakup, they might have some energetic ties to the other person in their heart or in their sacral chakra, which is connected with your sex organs.
okay.
So yeah, I think it can help a lot of things. I mean, it's very subtle,
Mm-hmm.
and the person has to be very receptive to that kind of. Because I've definitely done Reiki healing on some people, and they're like, eh,
Okay.
because it's just not. Everyone has to try different things.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's like going to a therapist. Not
You got to find the right one.
You got to find the right one.
Exactly. I mean, absolutely. And does the recipient feel like an energy? Do they feel a heat? Do they feel anything? Have they said that they feel something? Like when they're done with the session, a friend of mine, my friend Anna that booked me in to see you, she was talking about Reiki, and she said that afterwards she felt like this heaviness had lifted. Like she felt like she was like almost floating afterwards.
Yeah, it's different for every person.
Okay.
Right? Like I've had people who have health, like if they had pain, they were dealing, because you can do it. I mean, I think most people actually go to Reiki healing for physical pain.
Oh, okay.
Physical ailments.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say they go to their normal doctor and they take all the medication, but they want something. It's meant to be additional, right? It's not to replace like taking care of yourself, going to a doctor, taking your medication, eating the right foods, drinking clean water.
Exactly.
Paying your bills. Like it's not meant to replace any of that. Like that is just the foundation you want to work with. But like you said, there are things like, why is something still bothering me 5 years ago, or why is something from my childhood still plaguing me, or why do I keep making the same mistakes over and over again?
Yeah.
And not moving forward. I think that's the beauty of things like energetic healing. Looking at your astrological natal chart.
Yeah.
Reading, doing a beautiful tarot card spread and trying to get some answers.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out things in a different, because we all kind of do our thing, right? We go like, okay, I have my routine and I like to do things a certain way, but then all of a sudden like a wrench gets thrown in your system. You're like, oh no. And sometimes it's like, okay, maybe there's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about things like Reiki and the things that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you always had this? Have you always had this energy sense that you could feel this, or did it kind of come to you when you kind of opened yourself up to it? Have you always been able to feel people's energies, or been quite open to other energies?
I've had there was at work I had a arch enemy, and she sat next to me, and she hated my guts. She was very, very jealous of me, and so she was basically an emotional vampire, and
Wow.
she literally was. And this is way before I got into all the energetic work.
Yeah.
But Kelly, it got so bad. She would give me dirty looks all day, and I could feel my whole body crumbling because I had no tools.
Yeah.
And I had to wear braces because my carpal tunnel syndrome got so bad.
Wow.
And the doctor was like, you might have to wear these braces for the rest of your life. And I didn't know what to do. And finally, I quit the job. Like a month later, I didn't need the braces anymore.
I mean, that's incredible, that energy, right?
Yeah.
How powerful this is.
Yeah. Well, I allowed. I mean, I'm not saying that anyone deserves that kind of thing, but I think I pretty much was like, I let it happen in some way. Well, I was not given any tools, right?
Yeah.
My parents didn't give me any of those tools. Like, oh, you need to set boundaries. You need to just establish, like, you have to stand up to her or whatever. I just let it happen. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it was a big learning.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the thing, right? A lot of times when people aren't aware of energies and how that they are all around us, and we all are energies. One, not the tools, and two, it's not like someone gives us a textbook or sits us down in school and says, right, we're going to protect our energies, open our chakras, and,
Yes.
you know, and all become spiritual. You know, most of the time you're like, I'm not feeling good today, or I've got this really bad vibe from this person.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, oh, that was weird, and you move on. But if you
Yeah.
are given the tools to know how to protect yourself, you know, then be aware of it, then you know okay, well, I just can't be around that person for some reason. I don't know why. So, but I'm protected, so it's okay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that really, really interesting, because I'm just learning about this stuff as well, right? You know, yeah, okay, I have intuition, and you kind of can get a little bit of a,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure, but as soon as you're opening up, you think, that probably would have been why.
Yeah.
They're just,
Well, also learning that stuff for yourself can be an amazing tool to learn, to teach your child.
yeah.
Right? To
Yeah.
teach children. To establish those things early on is a beautiful gift, I think.
Completely, because you're absolutely right. Because I mean, children as well, they're so willing, especially my child wants to please so much, right?
Oh.
And if you don't give those boundaries and say, no, you have to protect yourself, you stand up to yourself. I mean, not even my child, because I'm very spiritual, she's very spiritual. She's an old soul. I mean, I think she's been around for years and years and years and years. And she's into crystals and, you know, that kind of thing. But because she's so intuitive and open, you're right. It's also sitting her down and saying, but you have a right to say no. And
Yes.
if you don't feel right, you say no. You come to me and say, Mama, someone was being mean at school. And then I'll teach you how to be polite, but to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that to me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because this is my space.
And teaching her that she's not being a bad person by voicing that.
Exactly. Oh, it's so true, isn't it? That using our voice, that already is so powerful. You know, to be able to stand firm and say, no, I'm sorry, this isn't right. And like you said, it's protecting your energy and protecting who you are. And yeah. So then tell me about, because when I had my birth chart reading with you, it was fascinating watching you work and the excitement that would literally just come to, and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And it was nice that I got to record it, because I've gone back several times to kind of read over it. And, you know, I had one right before I moved to Frankfurt, and I compared the two, and it was so interesting that the things that she said that were in my chart that were pretty predominant, you had said as well, and had emphasized that, but now is in a different place of being in Frankfurt for 2 years, and how those kind of were opening. Fascinating. So tell me about someone that's never had their chart read before. They're a newbie. I mean, I know there's a lot of information that goes into it, but can you kind of explain the basis of it?
Well, I use the Placidus system.
Okay.
And I like to look at, well, we generally go like, you know, what's your moon? So, you know, I'm sure you probably have talked about this with other people, but, you know, when you read like if you look at a magazine, you look at your sun sign, or, you know, oh, I'm a Leo, and, oh, that could mean for anything. You know, you read the horoscope and you're like, oh, that could be for anyone. But I think what most people don't realize is that actually astrology is quite old and quite intricate, and every chart is pretty much unique, because it's based on where you were born, the time you were born. Yeah. And you can't just, so basically your sun sign is like your purpose, why you're here, you know, how you feel alive, how you're going to feed your ego, your presence. But it's not everything, right? Your moon. So we look at your moon, and we look at your rising, and your rising is kind of like how you approach the world, your outlook. So you're a double cap, so it's a little bit easy.
Double cap, man, but it also a pain in the ass.
Yes. I mean, Capricorns, they're not known to be the most easygoing sign. I mean, you're here to get a lot done on planet Earth.
Yeah.
You know, you're not there. Did we talk about your human design at all?
We didn't go into that too much, no, because you had asked me my human design, because I'm a generator.
Oh, so there you go. I mean, you're here.
Yeah, I'm
to
here.
Work.
Yeah,
you're here to work.
No way around it.
Yeah, you're not here to just lay back, take a chill pill. You're not a projector where you're like, okay, my minions just come to me and I will espouse my wisdom. No, you're here to do the work. You're here to go deep. And you're here to get through and lead people. And I think, so like sometimes you'll encounter someone that like often Leo's probably the easiest one, right? So Leo, often think of like Madonna, Mick Jagger, Lady Gaga, Meghan Markle. Like they're here to sparkle and shine and they want to be seen and they're the performers. But a lot of times you'll meet a Leo and you're like, oh, they're kind of shy and what's going on there? They don't really want to be seen. And so, but one of my astrologers said that means that there's imbalance in the chart. So there's probably other things going on in the chart that emphasizes other things. Like, let's say if they have a lot of things in Cancer that is not the sun, like their Mercury, their moon and everything.
Yeah.
They might focus on family. The home, making a house really nice. I actually have a really dear friend and she's a Cancer rising, Capricorn sun, which is opposites, right?
Yeah.
So Capricorn's the ambitious, career focused sign. Cancer is the mom sign, homemaker. And she's going after her art career. But she's always like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to be seen. And it feels weird. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And then when I finally read her chart, I was like, oh God.
Now I understand.
it was really just like a conundrum. Like I was like, what is going on? You always talk about how you want to have this great art career and you want to, put yourself out there, but then she's so afraid to, that's her approach, right? Yeah. But it's also a gift because she's, incredibly caring, very deep, and makes a beautiful home. So those are gifts as well. Like every sign has a lower vibration, the higher vibration. So, it's not like, oh, Capricorn suck and Gemini's all lie. And
yeah,
they both can be those things, but I like to try to see patterns.
Okay.
There's this one planet called Pallas Athena, and she was the daughter of Zeus. So she's the intellectual. She's the pattern seeker. I have it very prominent in my chart. So patterns are a really, really big thing. Like I like to see like, oh, does a person have a lot of earth? Each sign has an element, right? So Capricorn's earth, Capricorn, Virgo,
Taurus,
exactly. Yeah. So do they have a lot of earth in their sign, in their chart? Do they have a lot of water? Like if you meet someone super emotional, they tend to have a lot of water.
Which is Scorpio. Cancer, right?
Yeah, Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces.
Yes. So funny because I'm a Capricorn, my husband's a Cancer, and so it's such a opposite. And my moon sign's a Cancer, so it's always quite interesting. The double Capricorn with Cancer.
yeah, it can be tough. I often find people. My recommendation is if you're a Leo or Aries, do not date each other.
Yeah, they're strong signs, aren't they?
Yeah, it's something with I've seen that combo. Like I have a friend who's an Aries sun and his wife is a Leo sun, and just like, oh my God, the fighting. It's not good.
Yeah. I have two friends like that too. And I think I need to remember their signs, but I have a feeling because they're so passionate and very intelligent and have a lot to say, it's like rah, rah, rah. And then, then they're like passionate again. And it's all great. Yeah. And it's back to it. And, it's a very dynamic relationship.
Yeah,
right?
It is very dynamic. Yeah, sounds like it.
That's interesting though. Is it smart when, let's say, you've met someone new and you're going into a relationship to look at their signs?
I think it's very important, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Because that probably can tell you a lot about how you're going to interact in a relationship, no?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you do partner kind of charts? Do you sometimes have someone requested saying, hey, this is my, can you read my chart and his, and does it seem compatible?
Yeah, that's known as a synastry, like Kah
Okay.
Haus synastry, I think it's pronounced. I can do that. I'm not saying I'm an expert at it. It's rarely been asked. I can look at like their partner's chart and just see like, oh, yeah, that might be an issue because of this in your chart.
Yeah.
But there is a more formalized part of astrology where you can literally put the charts on top of each other and see
Oh, wow.
how they'll interact. But that's another level of astrology I've not gotten to. I'm a manifest generator, so I know lots of different things.
Yeah.
Whereas like, for you, generator, like you can get into one thing and really push it through.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, which is great.
Which is great, but the same with generators though, right? You have to love what you do, right? It has to, isn't it about,
yes.
With generators, it has to, that gut, you have to get that gut feeling. And if you don't have that gut feeling, then stay away from it, because then you'll just get bored and you'll walk off.
Yes. Well, you won't have the energy to keep going.
That's it. Yeah. Which I find, which is really interesting since I discovered human design last year, that so much when I had my blueprint done, how much of it actually kind of, some light bulbs went off going, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This is why I haven't followed through on any of this, because, I didn't have the energy. I thought I had the energy, but I was really doing it because I thought I should do it, but it wasn't really meant for me, right? I wasn't listening to that gut. Didn't know how to hear the gut anymore at that point, right?
Yeah. According to human design, you're not supposed to use your head for making decisions.
But with you with human design, I think you had mentioned that you like aspects of it, but it's not just human design. It's kind of this overall, you need to have a bit of everything. No? Is that?
For me, yes. I mean, some people can love human design. They get super into it. I don't know. For me, I've actually recently just had a wonderful human design reading with this woman, Najeen, who's actually based in London.
Nice.
But just generally, I'm not a biggest fan of human design, because I think with astrology, what's so beautiful is all the storytelling, the narratives, and now they're discovering more planets, and it's so fascinating. Now they're using other cultures, because if you look at astrology, it's mostly based on Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
Like Mercury, Zeus, Pallas Athena.
Yeah.
And now it's getting into more like indigenous cultures, and
That's cool.
The storytelling. Like Haumea, who's from Hawaii, and Sedna, which is an Inuit goddess, and her story is absolutely fascinating.
Oh wow!
And her story is, it will take me forever to explain her story, but but a lot of it, if you look at where Sedna is placed in your chart, it's almost like it's about what you need to let go of. Like, because it's hurting you too much. It's hurting your soul. It's damaging you. It's preventing you to become the person you're meant to be. So it's a lot about that letting go.
Okay. Oh wow, that's I find all this extremely, extremely fascinating. How once you dig a little deeper into this, you also know how to navigate yourself a bit better.
Yes, or communicate with other people.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's a great word that you said, that communicate. Because so many times, I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day about, it doesn't matter how long you've been with someone in any relationship, you still have to work on that communication, right? Because you're growing as individuals, and, just because you communicated one way a year ago, you're going to communicate different because it's growth, right?
Yeah.
And the chart too also can show you this growth pattern you're going to take as well, which I found quite fascinating, right?
Yes. And then whatever is happening currently affects the chart. It's endless.
It is. And so for someone that would like to dig deeper into knowing more about astrology and their birth chart, where do you say they begin? Should they first have a reading so someone can kind of explain their chart first?
I think a reading is really, for me, when I had the midlife crisis, I had been in talk therapy for 11 years. Okay. And I got for me on a personal level, I got very little from it. Yeah. Because it was it was all very intellectualized. Yeah. And meanwhile, my emotions were not I it was like I was in this. I mean, I basically had a bad therapist.
Yeah.
She was not right for me, but it was so disembodied, right? And
Yeah.
it didn't feel, there was something really, really missing. So I had my first astrology reading, and I felt like I learned more about myself in that one reading than I had in 11 years of talk therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I think if you want to read a book first, or listen to podcasts or YouTube, that's totally fine. Everyone learns differently.
Yeah. Do you think that therapy and astrology should be more integrated?
Oh yeah, there are therapists that do that. Definitely.
Yeah, they're definitely. I have a therapist that's doing that now.
Oh wow.
Well, more on the intuitive readings and tarot side of things. But I found, for me personally, I needed that because I am so open, and astrology and tarot really touch my heartstrings. Like they kind of pull on them, and then I really then understand kind of what's going on. I think it's good that it's happening now, but for a long time it wasn't really introduced in therapy, was it? And now it's nice that you have that option.
Yeah, well, now you can get a therapy reading from anyone around the world quite easily.
Yeah.
It's a very different time.
Yeah, thanks to the internet and Zoom these days.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting too with COVID, right? Because it's been a very hard year and a half, but it has opened up. I mean, you don't have an excuse now not to get a reading. You can still get the healing you need anyway, so you don't have to be face to face anymore. Even though it's nice, absolutely, there's that added element, right?
Oh, it's way better in person.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just like learning, like going to school.
Yeah.
Taking a class. I mean, I'd rather learn ceramics in person than.
That would be really hard, wouldn't it?
I've had friends who've done that during COVID.
Really?
But I was like, I don't know how you're learning to make a bong and over Zoom, but okay.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it. This is my COVID bong. Whatever works, Very good. They should actually have a class for that. It's like get spiritual and then also, make your COVID bong. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing.
It does actually. Smoke up for spirituality. Keeps us calm these days. Then I'll just quickly ask you about so tarot. Because I know with your work you combine all of them then. So if someone were to approach you and say, hey, I would really like to book some of your time, do you focus on one or the other, or do you have some sessions where you kind of implement all of your gifts?